right. Hey, I'm with retired Sergeant First Class Aaron Blaine. I served with the U.S. Special Forces. Has an incredible story. We've known each other for a little over a year, and it's felt like, I don't know, to me, 10 years at least. Um, Incredible man, incredible husband, incredible human being. So I've benefited from any time that I've ever spent with him, and always leave wanting more. So the hope is that you'll experience the same thing. Not much of a hope because I think that you will. But anyway, I appreciate you being here and taking the time. You've got a lot going on right now, which I'd love to hear about and let everybody else hear about too. But your time's precious and in short supply with a wife and I want to say baby boy because I'm holding on to my 3-year-old as a baby boy still, but you have a toddler at home too, and a business and different roles that you have going on. So welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you being here on behalf of OSU and our veteran community and military affiliated students. We're grateful. We're grateful. Tell us.
Thank you. Thank you a lot for having me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're excited. So you're living in Montana right now. You weren't always in Montana. We were talking even before
Right.
we started recording how jealous I am, maybe a little resentment toward you that I hold a bit. As I look at cornfields and soybeans, you're looking at these incredible mountain ranges. So if you're willing, I'd love to hear and maybe give everybody an understanding of maybe your pre-military life to some degree, your military life, post-military life, and then currently kind of what you're engaged in.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the introduction. I grew up in actually Dayton, Ohio, and so Vandalia specifically. I had a pretty amazing childhood. I had great parents that were, madly in love with each other, and I had a big, bountiful family of tons of cousins. I grew up mostly at my grandparents' swimming pool in their backyard, playing and building forts and behind their house in the woods, and kind of grew up in that basic, not basic, I guess Midwestern lifestyle is the only way that I can put it. We had pizza parties every Friday and hung out with family and friends and watched movies and just your Ohio stuff. And so I grew up that way. Had a pretty big event where lost my father when I was 11. And so when that happened, I think that whole like white picket fence, Midwestern, family lifestyle just kind of went out the window for me and my brother. And my mom got sick, ended up in the Mayo Clinic for quite a long time. And my brother and I were pretty much raised by ourselves and our grandmother. So my mom's mom. And she kind of made sure we at least got up and went to school and took care of ourselves and showed us a bunch of love, which we definitely needed at that point in our lives. And there's this interesting story. It's like it changes every time I have an interview I'm getting a little bit more of a glimpse or clarity of what actually happened. And I think what happened was when I lost my father, I just had basically like a broken heart and a lot of trauma involved with the way that it happened, and just never dealt with it. And so went from 11 up to about 18 years old with a bunch of trauma, a bunch of anger, just a boy who was pretty much lost.
Sure.
And and so that's pretty clear to me that that's what happened as I was growing up. It was always like I was looking for, okay, what where did I go wrong, or what got screwed up, or what did I do? Was kind of the story, but really it's just somebody that was trying to heal from a pretty traumatic experience. And played sports, had pretty good friends, but overall felt pretty disconnected to myself and others all the way up through high school and even into my 20s. Very early on, I knew that joining the military felt like something super attractive to me. And, I read a bunch of books about the Marines, in the Army, and had a couple relatives. Both my grandfathers served in World War II, and it kind of felt like a calling for me. It just felt like something that would give me some structure, some brotherhood, to explore the world, and some travel. And so, yeah, there was a definite luster involved in getting involved in the military somehow. And so when I graduated high school, I joined the military. Went on to actually the Air Force at the beginning, and so spent some time in the Air Force.
Heard this story, and I have to pause and interject and say how much I love how you ended up where you ended up. It's pretty fun.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, joined the Air Force. Did a couple things in the Air Force, traveled a bunch, had a bunch of amazing experiences, and then I deployed to Iraq with the Air Force. Mm. And while I was deployed to Iraq with the Air Force, I was working the main gates, and so I was the entry control point for this air base up in Kirkuk, Iraq. And every single day I would see these special forces teams like drive out the gate, and then they'd come home, a day, 2, 3 days later, and they had big beards. They were super manly. They were cool as shit. Like every single one of them was really enthusiastic and lit up. And every time I saw one of them, it was just like, man, that's really maybe something that I would like to do at some point in my life. And I actually just had this feeling of, oh my God, I'm here deployed and I'm stuck on base, and like here these guys are going out and they're getting after it. They're doing the real thing. And so I found this excitement and wanderlust in the special operations. And so I decided shortly after that I was going to go to selection for the special forces. And it was funny because I was actually in an Air Force unit. I went over to the special forces company, and they were like, hey, we'd love to have you for like a weekend tryout. And so I did the tryout, and turns out I was ready to go. They were actually super psyched and prepared to send me. I'd been training for it for quite some time. And they sent me to selection. And it was funny because the Air Force was like, hey, we're not going to pay for it because, we don't want to let you go. And if you make it, you're just going to end up leaving the Air Force. So there's no justification for us paying for it. And the Army was like, we really can't pay for it either because you're not in the Army. And so we got creative, and one of the operations guys over at the Special Forces company was like, hey man, I got an idea. Why don't you just take leave and go down there and do it? And so that's what I did. I wasn't scared at all. I was so ready to make the transition that I took leave. I kind of told my command that I was going to go on vacation and just kind of figure out my life. And so I went down to selection, got selected, came back, and then we had to kind of figure out how to transfer me over to the Army. And so that's kind of how my special operations career began, which is really cool and interesting because that's typically how the special forces are highlighted or seen as like these unconventional guys, unconventional things. And so I definitely fit into that category already, even though it wasn't like the most kosher way of doing it. And so, yeah. So did that. And
doing that after the result, was there any kind of retribution or?
No, I mean, some of them were, fully aware. I mean, my immediate team, that I was on, they knew what I was doing.
Vacation meant.
And they were sort of like, yeah, I don't really like this, but I don't think we have a choice. I think Aaron's going to do it no matter what, which I was going to. And so
right.
It all worked out. And when I got back, there was like a feeling of like burning a bridge, and they were not so happy about my decision or the movement that I was making. And so, yeah, it was a bit estranged, I guess, after that. But yeah, so went on to selection, and spent the rest of my career in the Army with the with the Special Forces groups.
And how long was that you spent with the SF community?
So I went in around 2010, and then I got out just recently, and so probably a full 7 or 8 years, and then a couple years in just trying to get this medical retirement fleshed out. So
an easy process, I've heard.
No, not at all.
Yeah, quite a nightmare.
No, it's been a nightmare, but I definitely think it's been worth the wait. So
good. I'm hoping for the best for that. And mobilized while you're with the SF community, I know.
Yeah, so mobilized several times, twice to Afghanistan. Spent a good time over in Korea, a good amount of time over in Bangladesh as well, and then a couple other different contingency operations.
Mm-hmm.
And so a very full, bold, fast-paced lifestyle for about 7 or 8 years.
I imagine it went pretty quick, 7 or 8 years.
Oh yeah, it went really fast. It was like I hit the ground running and never really stopped.
Yeah.
And a lot of schools, a lot of training, a lot of events, and a lot of good relationships and friendships as well.
I'm wondering if you're willing to maybe what was the most enjoyable or fun or exciting training that you did, if there were even just a few that were at the top.
So, oh man, I think the ones that I'm most excited about, I can't say much about, but
trainings that you can do.
Yeah, and so I mean, I really liked airborne school. I thought it was fun. It was I was definitely on my edge of being absolutely terrified and excited at the same time to jump out of a plane a bunch of times.
Sure.
And so that was actually my first school that I went to in the Special Forces, and I met. It was interesting because I met so many cool guys there that were also in the pipeline to go onto the teams, and established some really good relationships there at airborne school. And I mean, all the training was fun. There were a couple like shooting schools that were super fun too.
Right. And your MOS, speaking of shooting, was
18 Bravo. So it was a Special Forces weapons sergeant.
Gotcha. So timeline was selection and then Q course. Is that right? And then after that went to different schools, or is there some different order?
I actually went from selection to airborne school, from airborne school to infantry school. And so I actually had to go achieve an Army MOS because I was in the Air Force before. And so before I could start the Q course, I had to go get my 11 Bravo identifier to even begin the Q course, which was actually pretty helpful. I didn't have a lot of infantry, experience, which is most of what you do in the Q courses as well. So.
Gotcha. So all said and done, by the time you're on a team from vacation, how long was that? Roughly.
Shoot, let's see here. So selection is not just a 3-week experience. It's a 3-week experience. Came home shortly after that and did, the 8-9 week infantry school, went to airborne school, and then that was just 4 or 5 weeks, and then the qualification course is just a little over a year. And so I'd say a good 3-year pipeline.
Wow.
2.5, 3 years to actually be on a team. And then typically when you go to a Special Forces unit, and you're a brand new Green Beret, you go to like what's called the B team. And so the B team is kind of like, support training. You're kind of facilitating all the support for the guys on the A teams.
Right.
And I somehow bypassed that because the unit that I showed up at was about to deploy.
Okay.
And so they lost to Bravo, and I went right through the chute, like straight into a team.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, I was, sitting in Afghanistan. So,
Yeah. And how long do people typically spend on a B team before they transition?
I mean, I think it's probably wildly different for everybody, but I would say anywhere from like 6 months to a year and a half.
Okay. Okay. Wow. All right.
And
So
you're constantly just kind of being recruited through the B team. It's like guys are kind of proving themselves, and then the other teams are looking at them like, okay, well, I got a Bravo leaving or an Echo leaving, and I can see that this guy's definitely squared away, and you know, start kind of gunning for that guy to get on the team. So
it's interesting. As somebody who's not too familiar with it, what I do remember hearing or um, kind of recognizing was that there's a tryout for the tryout for the tryout, and it seems like even once you get to the teams, there's still a degree of selection involved.
it never stops.
Never stop.
The tryout never stops, and then you leave that team and go to a next, and you start all over again. So
Is that right?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I left. I went back and forth from active duty to National Guard, and so yeah, just bouncing around the different special forces teams, and then there are some teams where I just deployed with them. I just went on a deployment with a team who had already been established, and so even then you're really trying to prove yourself and trying out for them.
Yeah, sure. So it never ends.
Yeah, never ends.
So high tempo, anyway.
High tempo, high expectations, really aggressive. Yeah, it's a lifestyle. It's kind of like we call it kind of like the rock star lifestyle of training hard, playing hard, and then and deploying and going doing some gnarly stuff.
Yeah. Is there an average amount of time that people tend to stay in an SF community in terms of years?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. It wildly varies. I mean, it kind of depends on op tempo, temperature of the war, like what's going on. Yeah, and then like some guys, it's like you get to a certain point where it's like, hey, I might as well just do this for the rest of my career. Some guys just decide, hey, in 2 or 3 years they get a taste of it, and then they know that they want to move on or find some other lucrative position for them outside of the military. And so yeah, it wildly varies. Say there's a lot of guys who spend their whole career in the military though when it comes to special forces. So
Okay. Yeah. So one of the the way that we connected was obviously after all the things that you did in the military, and to some degree on the tail end of some of that transition and even the medical discharge too. But that was kind of what drew me to you initially. I didn't even know about your military background other than that you were a vet, but we linked up doing some men's group work on a retreat actually, and got to spend some time together. That is kind of in line with even what we've spoke about before we started recording this morning about some of the ways that we've connected and even jived on even a different level. I think even as a veteran, not who's done similar things to you, but that's one way in which we connect. But the what moves me the most and what I feel most excited about is the other connections and passions that we share. So related to that and everything that you started doing after the military, tell us what took place after you transitioned out.
yeah, totally. And so, we talked about the fast-paced lifestyle and, how you're kind of just running and gunning and going to schools and deploying, and, it's extremely aggressive and actually just absolutely amazing. And then there gets to be a point where, for me, it was like I never knew how to take a knee and slow down a bit. And so I think what happened was, along with my pre-military experience, and then all of the experiences that I had in the Army, I just began to really burn out and to realize that I was moving too fast. I was disconnected from myself and my other people, my community, and started to take a toll on my physical health, my mental health, and emotional health as well. And so just recognizing that after a pretty tough deployment to Afghanistan, I came home and just kind of decided it was time to really take a knee and to focus on my well-being. And I was at kind of at I was at an inflection point of either going down a really dark road or, finding some light to create a new life for myself. So yeah. Yeah. And it definitely didn't hurt that, my wife got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that I was bringing another child into the world, or another human being into the world, felt like a time or a definite inflection point and responsibility to get my life together, take care of myself, and be able to show up for myself and for my family. And so it became clear to me that my life shifted a bit more than normal. And then growing up without a father, it just immediately made sense to me that I just needed to be home and to stay here, so that way I could provide a life for my son that I wasn't able to have.
Yeah. I really like how you put that. Summarizing it is like, I think about, for my own sake, and then for clients that I see too, we have an obstacle, I think, often to self-care. And I think one of the ways of overcoming it, or prioritizing it, for me at least, is recognizing that my self-care is not just about myself. It can feel greedy, it can feel selfish, it can feel guilt-inducing to take time for me. But if I frame that and realize that actually I got 2 boys now, my dudes need me to be like at the top of my game. And that doesn't mean running and gunning. It means present. It means affectionate. It means loving. It means healthy. It means, their mom and I are in a good place relationally too. So I love that part of your story as well. And there's a link, if it's okay, that I attach to an article that you wrote for Fatherly. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it was written by one of my best friends, Dan Doty, as told by Dan Doty through the life of Aaron Blaine. So
Okay.
yeah, I was really grateful for that article, because it did, he knows me really well, and he did a great job of highlighting those points and make it a really impactful article.
Yeah. Love that. Well, I'll include that link if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Love some benefits from that. So can you talk about what that now involves in terms of your own self-care and your routine, and how you maintain, it's still you have, knowing you and know what you're doing now, there's still a high tempo involved, but there's a different priority, it seems like, and a different perspective with that tempo, and just a different output of that tempo in terms of who it's for, and who benefits from it. Again, that's one of the things I love so much about you and hearing about is taking that same, it's like a benevolent, kind form of aggression to other people, to help them find some of the things that we're talking about, to find meaning, to find purpose, to find true vocation, to find, even to some degree, not to sound woo-woo, but to find self if they've lost it or never had a real connection to it. So you've done work with National Geographic, you've done work with all sorts of organizations. We were just talking about your time up in the Arctic Circle before. Yeah. So tell me what took place in terms of maybe catch us up to speed to where you are now, and some of the roles that you've had since transitioning out of the military too.
Yeah, totally. So, the idea of self-care and the way that you just framed that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me coming out of the special forces teams. It was like, go hard all the time and accomplish and aspire to do more and keep going after it. And I think that was great for a good bit of time in my life to have that discipline, have that work ethic, and to be able to really pound it out and create a personality for myself and create a foundation of hard work. And then getting older and moving into my 30s and all of the compounded injuries and training and everything starts to kind of highlight itself a bit more. And so there's like there's an inflection point of understanding that self-care and taking care of your body, taking care of my body, taking care of my spirit, taking care of my mind, is a balancing act, and being able to make room for. And I love how you frame that, is taking care of yourself so you can take care of other people, and that's exactly what it was. It's like, all right, I've got to really sink into this and find out what works for me, so that way I can show up and be, I can play with my son on the floor, I can take my wife out for a date, and go on a backpacking trip with her, or, all that stuff. And so, yeah, it was totally a foreign concept to me at first. And kind of the first introduction to self-care was me showing up to a men's group, a local men's group here in Bozeman, and led by a good friend of mine, Dan Doney. And what happened in that group was I felt like I was really welcomed back into my community by other community members. There was this concept of like, I'd go to the VA and talk to some guys that were deployed, and that was great to have the connection to guys who've gone through similar experiences. And then there was a point where I realized, for me, in my experience, being welcomed back by guys who were not in the military and being seen and heard and felt by men that were, attorneys and doctors and trash truck drivers and ranchers. Those are the guys that really saw me and had a genuine curiosity for the journey that I was on, and I had a genuine curiosity of the journey that they had been on, and understanding that trauma and burnout and all of the emotional experiences that we have in life are all very similar, just a different story. And so it was a really cool way for me to see things in a different light and know that I actually wasn't that special, that us human beings are all very similar, and we've all just had a different story. And that was a really a big door that was able to be lifted up and opened up for me to kind of make my way into having some self-care. From there, I understood and learned from the other guys that take care of your body, taking care of your your mind and your spirit are also equally as important. And so I began to do body work like massage and chiropractic care, get fixed up, get back into the gym to stay strong, but to also know when to slow down and know when to just kind of be still. And I got really deep into meditation and yoga as well for flexibility. And I mean, I threw on a 100-pound ruck, and put a lot of miles on my back and my legs, and never saw and I never had to stretch. I felt like I was naturally pretty athletic and pretty driven, and I never really needed to stretch. I would always hear people say like, hey, lions and tigers don't stretch before they take off, which is actually a lie. They do. I actually did find footage of different cats that were taking down their prey, but and beforehand they actually did stretch. And so it's a lie if you're out there and you believe that. But
just debunk it for us, thanks.
Yeah, but my wife looked at me one day and she was like, Aaron, you deserve to be flexible. Like you just deserve to be flexible. And I was like, wow, I'm going to take that as like constructive criticism, but also like have some self-care and love for myself in that sense. And so I began a journey of stepping into a bit of an uncomfortable experience of doing yoga. And there's I think still sort of a stigma or a woo-woo-ness to doing yoga and
meditation as well, and other practices like that for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's changing too. Like whenever I did actually my last deployment to Afghanistan, there was a team at one of the bases they're holding yoga like every single morning for the whole base. And guys were like, wait a minute, these Green Berets are doing yoga. I'll try it out.
I love it.
So
love it.
Maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's a business plan for some special forces guys to.
That's right.
Start a yoga.
Yeah, if you're listening, you have to at least give credit to Aaron Blaine. So that's great. Yeah. So
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
No. So definitely began to see the value in and being flexible and stretching. And then also I think just like the mindfulness part of it, of just like slowing it down and really getting into my body. That's one thing that's very clear to me now that I didn't have access to early on, is like I lived entirely in my head. And so I was always constantly thinking, constantly strategizing, constantly, trying to improve and sharpen up. But I actually didn't know what it meant to feel in my body, which feels pretty hilarious now. It's almost embarrassing to know that I went probably 30 some years without understanding how to really sink into my body and feel what it feels like to be angry, or to be scared, or to have a lot of joy, or just recognizing like, wow, my legs are extremely tight and sore right now. I should probably take care of them for a minute. And so yeah, just having that having access to actually just feeling was a big change for me.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that so much, and that resonated a lot when I first heard your story and we first connected, how often I feel this way. And then with a lot of the clients that I see, men in particular, who I think it's true for everybody, but we often experience emotions somatically first. So I'll ask people sometimes, like, do you feel depressed, or do you feel anxious? Nope, not anxious at all. Like, well, tell me what you're sensing and kind of feeling. If we slow down and say, oh, my chest is tight all the time, I got like muscle tension, I grind my teeth in my sleep, I feel nauseous and fidgety, like my limbs and fingers tingle. It's like, hey, we call that anxiety, like.
Right.
So I think it's a phenomenal, if for nothing else, just like a good marker of saying my neck is tense. That's indicating something. It's indicating an emotion, and if it's indicating an emotion, it's indicating a thought, from a cognitive, psychological perspective. What might that be, and what do I need to do?
1,000,000%. And I think that, like what you said before, there's a story that we can tell ourselves that, like, no, I'm doing great. I'm just pulling my bootstraps up and going after it. And I think that's very true in modern day masculinity, or even in femininity too. Like there are a lot of the females out there that they're pushing hard. They're in the corporate world. They're they're grinding in a sense. And so just having that awareness of where you feel that in your body, I think our minds can tell us a different story than our bodies do. So
sure, no doubt. I find it interesting how I know how much the military trained me to do, and it feels like an awful lot.
Yeah.
And from a special forces perspective as well, knowing all the training that you did, and yet did not come out knowing how to transition, did not come out, to your point, knowing how to take a knee or slow down or be present or be aware. Trained to do what we're taught to do and expected to do. And that's not a criticism necessarily, more just an area that points out kind of a need and an additional skill. We put a ton of emphasis on these deficiencies and pathologies and things like that unnecessarily. I think sometimes I treat them like an additional skill that we just didn't get. Like, I didn't get to go to airborne school. I did go to air assault school, which is a blast.
Nice.
But to develop that skill, I need to go, and to develop the skill of transitioning, slowing down. There's a school, so to speak, for that. There's a training regimen for that, and I like the language you've used a lot. It's not a really intense 3 to 4 week course. It's a journey that you start and you progress at and get a little bit better, maybe every day. So I love how you frame that a lot.
Yeah, and I used to have maybe some anger towards the military process and veterans getting out, and I think really what you said was important too. Is just like, we just aren't there yet, and for me it's like, okay, well, of course you learn how to go hard, and you make the best of your time there, and then there's just this like off ramp of, all right, see you later, and there's, of course, there's a ton of resources that they attempt to throw on your plate. But I don't know, there's this notion for me of like, when a guy's ready to get out of the military, he's not paying attention to any of that. It's more so like, hey, just let me sign these, let me get initials on the rest of this sheet here on my out processing checklist, and let me get the hell out of here. And then what I believe happens for men and women is that there's like this honeymoon period of like, wow, I have the freedom to leave the army and go do what I want, the military in general, and kind of start growing your hair or your beard if you're a guy, and kind of just kind of letting the walls down a bit. And then for me, what I've seen, and I don't want to speak for every single veteran, but I think there's a lot of guys, a lot of girls like this, where they come out and they have that honeymoon experience, and then about 6 months to 9 months later, there's suddenly this realization that, wow, I've lost a significant connection to a tribe of people that I once belonged to. I had the structure of waking up and going and doing these workouts and
Sure.
knowing what to do for work, and then there's like a wait a minute, like where do I go from here? And so that's what I just, if I had to give some criticism to the military experience, it would be, hey, let's take care of these guys a bit more after they exit, or offer something that can allow them to find their new purpose, kind of like what you and I were talking about before the call. Just like find out what lights you up. You don't have to do what you did in the Army. You don't have to do what you did in the Navy. You can just kind of feel what it feels like to do what you want to do, and bring your best gifts into that.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's so often. Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for everybody either, but there's a lot of losses associated with that maybe we're just normal and typical. We might not be aware of, like the loss of community and tribe, the loss of discipline and structure and routine, and no doubt the loss of purpose. I think that's one of the most meaningful aspects of the military, is knowing exactly what you're designed to do, exactly what the mission is, exactly what the contingency plans are, and getting out. I would say that I won't rank them, but that's a significant need. So I think that if we don't attend to that, we're going to be hurting. And it doesn't, to your point that you made before the call too, that doesn't always mean, what was your MOS? We'll just find the most relevant civilian equivalent, and you'll slide right in, and it'll be this smooth and seamless process. I suppose sometimes it is, but not always. And I like the permission almost that we can give to ourselves to explore alternative options. What that means, a lot of the things that you're doing right now have nothing to do with your weapon sergeant training. A lot of the things,
not at all.
yeah, yeah. A lot of the things that you do now, you're utilizing some of those skills that you were equipped with. So it's exciting to see. So
Yeah, and what you said about, like, yeah, you have this loss, your loss of community, loss of structure. There's a lot of losses, but I think, if I have to put it in a spiritual term, it's like you're actually having a death of yourself in a way. It's like there's all kinds of all parts of my life where I can look back and say, you know what, I was a football player, and then when I graduated high school, that part of me died. It was like I can't bring myself as a football player into the rest of my experience in life, because that doesn't really equate. And so there's just like this death that happens, and maybe some people grieve the loss of that part of their life a bit better than others. And I think there's probably a lot of that happened with me, is like I was trying to pull these parts of my life into areas that didn't quite make a bunch of sense. And so I think that might happen a lot with that.
Yeah, it'd be easy to. Yeah. Well, I'm curious about, for the veteran out there who might be aware of that kind of, we called it like this ambiguous longing, perhaps, of like, there's something's off. Maybe it's that death of myself that I haven't recognized. Maybe it's me trying to pull that or resist that, even death, so to speak. Aware that they need something or could benefit from something. I'm curious about your experience with barriers to help seeking, especially as a man and especially as a veteran, that veterans in particular might face, and any word that you give to people who are maybe aware that they might have a need, or might not even be aware that they have a need,
Totally. Yeah. And I would say if you feel that there's something missing, or you sense that there's just you know, you're not getting out of life what you want, that's probably true.
Mm.
And then what I'd say after that is, just to slow down, just slow way down, and to just listen. One thing that I realized is that, it's not helpful for me or productive for me to run around looking under rocks to try to find something.
Mm.
And it's more productive for me to sit back and say, just kind of like a hawk, and looking out and finding the right time or the right opportunity to go after something and to attack a situation that feels like, hey, this is something I want to bring into my life, or this lights me up. And that's the other thing. Like, I think a lot of people just want to, a lot of veterans, a lot of people in general just like to snatch onto something that just makes a little bit of sense.
Mm.
It's really like, wow, how can we sit back and wait for the experience that comes along that says, like, this is really what lights me up. It's what makes me happy. It's what I can take the culmination of all my life and put energy into this, and it's going to feel good, instead of producing a paycheck, or filling a role, or an archetype, or a story for someone else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, just saying, like, slowing down is the biggest part of it. And then just listening to what's out there, and feeling what's out there for yourself that makes the most sense.
Sure.
And not trying to rush into it.
I like that. I'm aware too, just of, not to make it sound simplistic, but there's a degree, I think, that we might feel, a degree of frustration, I suppose we might feel, or even wandering, that as a result of, in the military, chain of command, issues and order, we develop a plan and we execute it. And to come out of that, maybe we have a curriculum now, or a degree program, or some advisors that can help steer, but there's a change in authority, even. I don't know, that might be the wrong word to use it, but there's a change in the source of some of that input. And I resonate with that quite a bit. And I think that people sometimes need to hear that kind of permission to listen and trust self, true self, we'd call it. And good things happen when we do, but very difficult to do that, I think, when we're going 1,000 miles an hour. And so, that's a skill that we need to develop, the ability to slow down and just be. There's psychological literature talks about this orientation of doing versus being. Doing is very helpful, very beneficial, very necessary, but all the more so if we can also tap into that being mode, where we can just be and slow down, take a knee, recharge, learn, listen to self, listen to influences, and then from there.
It feels to me like, if I had to put it in a story, it's like disentangling ourselves from our entire lives, and then rebuilding it from a place of consciousness, of like, okay, wow, these are all the stories that I've told myself, or these are all the things that everyone wanted me to do, or I even thought I wanted to do myself. And let's wipe all those off the table, and begin to fill that table full of things that light you up, that feel good, that align with your purpose, and start reevaluating what your values are. The Army kind of tells you what your values are. There's like, I can't remember the acronym, but it's kind of like they just took a word, and then they just decided they were going to like fill that word with other words to make an acronym. It was like duty, responsibility, and they're great, great things to pull from. But I think reevaluating what your own values are, and seeing, like, okay, I want to be an honest person, or I want to serve, and serving can mean many things. And so serving the military is one, and then coming out and, like, how do we serve our communities? How do we serve the people that we love the most? How do we serve our family? And I think just like a reevaluation or reprogramming for ourselves, and just like slowing it down a bit, definitely helpful.
I've heard Jocko Willink say we need a new mission
Yeah.
It's essential. You need a new mission, and figuring out what that is, I think it's hard to rush that. I think there's no course to go take on it. I think that it's reflective, it's intuitive, it's spiritual, it's relational. It's I don't know. I think we do ourselves a disservice if we try to hurry that process along. That just kind of happens organically. That's not to say that we can't get help from others to help facilitate it. It is to say that almost paradoxically, the more we slow down, I think the more that comes naturally. And that's one of the best resources, I think, or the best benefits of some of the help seeking that we can get is to find people who can help us slow down, whatever that looks like for us.
Well, and we don't even have to use people either. And one thing in terms of self-care that I didn't mention, which was probably the most beneficial for me, is just finding nature and going out into spaces that are quiet, that allow me the permission and space to slow down. And so, talked about it a bit before, but whenever I got out of the Army completely, I moved out to Montana, and it was a place where I could go out into the woods, not see another person for days, and not have cell phone service, and give myself the space. And I really prioritized the time outside to slow down and to kind of swipe the plate clean and come up with some new values. And that's definitely been extremely pivotal in my growth, is just being outside in nature and slowing way down. And another thing that came up as you were describing the mission is that for me, hunting was that it was like filled a space of a mission, being able to like have a packing list, pack up a backpack, walk into the woods with a mission to take down some big game and pack it out and complete that mission for filling my freezer full of food.
Yeah, right. I don't know what it's like in Montana right now. I know elk season started, I think, but archery deer season started Saturday here, so we'll see.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like you're cheating a little bit being in Montana, like with the nature piece. It doesn't have the same
Well,
as sitting in a soybean field.
I don't think it does necessarily.
Degree.
No, and I think that what I learned just from being out here and being in Alaska is that there's such a relationship to space and to places that I didn't realize that I needed to have. And I think that you can get that pretty much anywhere you are.
Yeah.
And so just like slowing down and paying attention to, the spaces that you live, what lights you up, like, what are, paying attention to me, like there's no better place to be than Ohio in the fall, of like driving through and seeing the deciduous trees turning and prioritizing getting out in the fall and driving down to southeastern Ohio. It's like, wow, there's something really special there. So I think you can go find it no matter where you are. I know a lot of guys in New York City that drive up to like Western Massachusetts and northern part of New York and get out to the farms and ranches out there and slow down and they actually prioritize that.
Yeah, I think that's the highlighting that word is important and appropriate. It's the priority, and I think that's where we trip up sometimes, is not prioritizing it. Not because we don't think it's even important, just because we have 1,000 other things that feel and truly are important and significant.
Yeah, I know for my own mental health, it's actually crucial. And so it's like, if I don't make space for that, then I will begin to kind of spin out of control. And so like that comes along also with listening to my body and like feeling on. And instead of it being catastrophic and having it be like where it's too late or it's time to like really start triaging these experiences, I can feel it, know that it's coming, and decide, hey, I'm going to put everything on hold and go, take a hike out into the woods or.
Yeah. I like that. I think about it in terms of an itch. It's like I'm getting the itch.
Yep.
And if I don't scratch it this way, I'm going to scratch it some other way, and it probably won't go so well for me or those around me. So
comes out sideways that way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. So related to even tying all this together, I think is what you do now. And it's thrilling and exciting and thoroughly interesting to hear what you have going on. in a variety of roles. I'm wondering if maybe this would be a good opportunity to hear what you're doing, and then also how people could connect with you, work with you even in the future, and what that would look like.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the plug. I now work for an organization called Wisdom, and what Wisdom does is we create spaces for transformational personal growth and group growth. And so we basically we the essence of our experiences are coaching, or helping people find their purpose, and we do that by one-on-one Zoom calls, workshops. We also take people out into nature for one-on-one experiences or group experiences where we drop into a place that's nice and quiet, and kind of clear the plate and do everything that we just talked about. Find some space for ourselves, and really start to slow down and disentangle ourselves from the stories, and find out what it is that lights you up and where you want to go, and then create a map to help people go there. And so it's a truly rewarding position to be in, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So
yeah, I love it. I think it's hugely important. I think there's a lot of stigma around mental health providers or the field in general. We're working to reduce that, but I don't blame people for a minute if they don't want to go see a counselor. I think coaching and providing even the resources that we've talked about is a phenomenal opportunity for people, and might be very, very sufficient and get you exactly what you need. So I think that we come out here and, as veterans come out hearing, you need to go see some mental health professional or something like that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe some of the things that you need, and I think maybe a lot of the things that you need could be provided from some of the things that I know that you're doing, which is so, I don't know, just thrilling. It's just a different modality and a unique modality that I think a lot of people resonate with. Obviously, there's a whole organization built around it. So
the great thing about coaching, and I have several clients that I meet with on a weekly basis, is that no one needs coaching, but if there's something that you want, I can be the kind of the guide that helps you get what you want, just by slowing down and listening deeply to what you have to say, and then coming up with some ideas to help you build that life for yourself. And so that's what's really cool about coaching, is that I'm not sitting here like trying to sell myself. It's like if you really want to come along and to explore what it is, you may not even know what you want, right? It's down there somewhere, and it's kind of my job to help you find that. And the words come from your mouth, not mine. And it's a really cool experience. It's a bit of an adventure to help people or guide people and explore through themselves, through the inside of themselves, their minds and their bodies is the same. So
I love it. Well, we'll include some links and things like that people can find you through. But if you're willing and want to, and if it's helpful to our listeners anyway, how can people contact you, find you, reach you? Hear what you
I'm at thank you. I'm at Aaron at WSDMLLC.com.
Okay.
And or you can just go to wisdom.com.
Got it. Aaron with 2 A's.
Yes.
Got it. Roger that. Got a lot of love for you, my brother. I respect you a ton. I'm looking forward to doing some more work together, whatever that looks like. I'm incredibly grateful for you taking the time out of your busy schedule that you could have been doing a lot of other things with. So I know that this is going to be a benefit to a lot of people, and I just can't thank you enough.
Well, man, there's nothing I'd rather do than to see you every now and then, and to help strengthen the relationship that we've already built. I think we're going to do a lot together, and thanks for having me, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thanks so much.
I hope I can be some help too.
Oh, no doubt. You will. Thanks, man.